had one question and one consideration. And the question is, this last sutra, could we, as the lotus of the heart and centering everything in the lotus of the heart, could it in one word mean compassion?
Well, it's not directly. I mean, that may be the result. That may be, see, the result of this whole identifying, overcoming your individual limitations and becoming universal in your consciousness is, of course, the condition for compassion. Because if you are not able, we had this one shloka from the Vijnana Bhairava, that the same consciousness is found in all the beings, and one has to pervade all the beings with the same consciousness. That is a condition for compassion. And that can only happen when these individual limitations, this sankocha and this kanchuka and all that, when that is overcome. Because otherwise we are always busy with our egoistic pursuits, and as Abhinavagupta says, so beautiful, he says, everybody is so busy with their own ego pursuits, so they are not capable of doing anything good for others. So unless you overcome that individualistic identification with the body, the mind, etc., you cannot have compassion. It will be something still related to your ego. So some people are compassionate because they want to satisfy their ego, but this is not what is meant here. That is, unless that universal consciousness is developed, that compassion cannot be possible.
In Kashmiri Shaivism, they talk a little bit about Mala and Maya and all of that, and yet there's a little bit of criticism about Mayavada in Advaita Vedanta, and I'm just wondering, what does it mean in this system when you talk about what's real?
What came in the system?
When you talk about the world we know as being real rather than being, I don't know, what's the term? Well, maybe you could say unreal, you know? Like there's a bit of criticism with the Vedantists that they say the world isn't real. And in Kashmiri Shaivism, you're saying the world is real, but there's still the talk of Maya and Mala and this sort of thing. So what do you mean by real? I'm just wondering what the system says about that.
No, it's not the same Maya. You have the list of the tattvas, and Maya is definitely a stage in that whole cosmic scheme. And the stage which comprises the so-called impure elements. Impure in the sense that they are in a dualistic, pluralistic understanding. But Maya is then that a threshold for Shuddha Vidya to arise, for the pure wisdom to arise, and that threshold only has to be passed. That is the critical point. But it's not Maya in that absolutely, that the whole world is Maya, as in Vedanta, and she's Anivachanaya and all this, and she's Mithya, not in that sense. But still, she is an aspect, and because this is so much Shakti-centered, Maya is a Shakti. Maya is the Shakti of Shiva. But she has a different function. She has a function of deluding, whereas Shuddha Vidya has a function of revealing, revealing. No, it's a Shakti, yes. Well, I mean, it's not a Shakti, but it's an aspect of Shakti, definitely. Because Vidya, like Jnana Shakti, it is an aspect of Shakti. Yeah.
But I think my question really more is about what the definition of real would be. Like in Buddhism or in Advaita, they would
Yeah.
say that impermanence is
Yeah,
what shows something to not be real. So what is real to a Kashmiri Shiva proponent?
Yeah, we have that wonderful theory. Well, in Buddhism you have Pratitya Samutpada, and in Shaivism we have Sarvam Savatmakam. Now, maybe Pratitya Samutpada stresses that impermanence, that everything is mutually dependent, and so far it is impermanent. And Sarvam Savatmakam, it also stresses the interconnectedness of everything, but not in the sense of denying it reality, but in the sense of nothing exists independently. And I would always love to have a dialogue with Buddhists on this Pratitya Samutpada and Sarvam Savatmakam, because I feel they are very close. But only the starting point in Shaivism is, of course, not Shunya, but Purna. Because the Sarvam Savatmakam, with everything is connected with everything else, it leads to Purnata, not to Shunyata. But I had a dialogue seminar in Sarnath with Venerable Samtong Rinpoche, and he said, at the end, it was on Shunya and Purna. He said, well, there are only two sides of the same coin. So it was wonderful. But there should be a real dialogue, because the most important point of these two theories is the interconnectedness. And when we are speaking here of universal consciousness is a consciousness of that interconnectedness, that nothing is isolated. See, if I lose my isolated individuality, then I am much more connected with the totality. And every little thing, we have these beautiful verses of Utpaladeva where he says a blade of grass, and he sees Shiva in that blade of grass, and he worships Shiva in that blade of grass. So that everything is so much connected that that expansion of consciousness in that interconnectedness, this is the purpose of what we have just now read.
So is this what is showing? Oh, sorry. Is this what is showing reality? I hate to keep bugging you, but I'm just wondering about this term real.
Real and unreal. Yeah. Well, you can connect the three philosophies, Vedanta, Buddhism, and Kashmir Shaivism, in the sense that the universe is real insofar as, insofar as it is Brahman, in this case of Vedanta, insofar as it is the divine consciousness in Shaivism, and, of course, in Buddhism, so far as it is a void. So, that there could be real dialogue between the three systems, that they are not denying that things do not exist, but what means that existence? And so the answers are different according to the background, because in Shaivism we have these agamas, the background, and they, of course, they describe all these levels of reality and so on, but they are only real insofar as they partake of that divine consciousness, of that samvit. So what is samvit? What is this Chaitanya? It is not a substance. You see, the problem the Buddhists have with Vedanta or with Shaivism is that if you consider Atman as substance, it's not a substance. Consciousness is not a substance. Consciousness is something very fluid, something very transparent. And if you say everything is pervaded by consciousness, so it loses its solidity or its substantiality in another sense than the Buddhist shunyata. But still, it is not like what I found in my very primitive understanding of modern physics, that when this quantum physicists say this matter is not matter. Matter is consciousness.
Energy and information.
Huh?
Energy and information.
Yeah. So we are not very far from each other, but only we are so much entrenched in our terminologies and in our discussions at a very philosophical level. But I think one could come much closer if you really try to understand what is meant by this consciousness. Everything is pervaded by this consciousness. And it is nothing but consciousness. It is a solidification. This Ashyana, Chitra Sasya Ashyana Rupa. The solid things are a solidification of crystallization of the essence of consciousness. And the comparison is water and ice. So water becomes crystallized in ice. Well, ice is a solid thing, but actually it's water. And what is the other example given? Or sugarcane juice and crystallized sugar. So it's a crystallization of that fluidity of consciousness. Consciousness fluid is a rasa. So that is why, we should not overemphasize these differences, which have been troubling us for centuries. But there is definitely a possibility for dialogue, even on that understanding of reality, unreality, voidness, and so on. And you have also done the Vijnana Bhairava, and you have seen, who is Bhairava? Bhairava is void, is shunya. So the definition of Bhairava is there is no God, solid, God, as Swamiji said yesterday, the Devi. It's not that goddess, which you see in the temple, but it's in every being is that goddess is manifest. So Bhairava is voidness, and everything is negated. You have in the Vijnana Bhairava one verse, meditating on Bhairava is voidness. So there are, when you come from the spiritual angle, then there are so many bridges between the traditions. And that experience of that dialogue between Shunya and Purna in Sarnath was something really wonderful, because it did not end with total, fighting about concepts, but rather discovering the common experiences. And at the end, it was His Holiness who gave us the last word, and that was wonderful. It is all published. Yeah. Void and fullness. Yeah, this is a very important point you made, yes.
I know after last year, I was looking a little bit online in some forums, and I saw some really big discussions about this difference between what is real and what's not real, between some people from the Kashmiri Shiva side and some from the Vedantic side. So I was just wondering if there was some definition that I could kind of grasp as for the reality part, because I know from Buddhism and a little bit from Advaita about what they say about unreality and impermanence and stuff. So that's why I'm asking from that.
Yeah, but this is not the end of the discussion, but it opens up a very important subject, definitely. Okay, so I think we have a quick cup of tea, and then we organize ourselves for going up. And we say goodbye to Belinda. You're leaving?